Yeah. So what I was trying to tell you was that we're all living in a very straight-jacketed society where there are cliches and where there are stereotypes. And suppose, say, I take a word like craft or art, our mind conjures a very traditional image. If you take the word writer, you have a very somber look, formal wear, pen, and a very thoughtful, formal person. So here I am with someone who's breaking stereotypes all the time and who's very much a part of the glamour world and is beyond cliches, beyond stereotypes. She seamlessly works in the worlds of fashion, architecture, art, craft, education, philanthropy, and she's a prolific blogger, an author of 2 books, an rights activist, a very huge voice on the social media, and from what I hear about her and read about her, her bucket list is overflowing. So, welcome on Pavitra, Nisha JamVwal. How are you, gorgeous?
I'm very well. Thank you so much. May I return the compliment and tell you what a great admirer I am of your mellifluous voice, of the way you carry off the liberation by sound musical evenings that we so enjoy, your eye for the aesthetic in terms of your handicrafts and your attire, which is always traditional weaves, being a great admirer of the Indian weaves and a craft crusader. I've always noticed what you're wearing. Um, I want to thank you for so meticulously understanding my the fabric of my personality and my life. Um, it has been a very out of the box existence, and it has also been a very unpredictable set of events that set the course of my life, Shubha. Um, I grew up in a world, in an erratica of art, in a kaleidoscope of color, and where other children were reprimanded for drawing on the walls. My mother actually bought crayons and paints, and my parents made me draw and paint on the walls. And when I was not even 3, they gave me colors and cards and made me color the cards and sent out their Christmas and Diwali cards that I had sketched at that young age. So the encouragement and the impetus that I received has to be attributed to my parents, which of course led to a world where art took precedence over nearly everything. And all holidays were spent at museums and galleries, whether it was Sousa's nudes that I was exposed to at such a young age without, any crude mindset to it, or whether it was the works of Nandlal Bose or Rabindranath Tagore, or whether it was the music of Mukesh or Geeta Bali. Art was always in a erratica of forms. There was no restriction in my life. So I guess it was a very offbeat childhood which set the tone to my entire life. And when I met my life partner, um, he is and will always be the wind beneath my wings,
Oh,
who further absolutely encouraged and gave me so much. um, there's no word to describe this great human being who absolutely propelled me and encouraged me and bought me cameras to take photographs and to interpret art in different ways and explore and experiment even further. So that where other, the pre-formatted form of the conventional patriarchy is where, when you're not returning a home on time or where you're busy setting up an auction, there will be recriminations. In my case, there was only encouragement. And very early on, Shubha, when I returned to India after an education in Japan, Paris, and LA, I set up my first auction in India for the very exotic Indian crafts. And that was under the tutelage, guidership, and mentorship of Roshan Kalapesi, who had been the protege of Kamla Devi Chattopadhyay. That was so poignant because of the fact that I saw that our crafts would be dying if we didn't give them encouragement. And on the other hand, so beautiful and so exotic and so kaleidoscopic that it just opened up a new world for a person who'd, only been exposed thus far, more so to the Louvre or d'Orsay or the Picasso Museum or the Hermitage in LA or Hakone, where I'd lived and worked in Japan. So while I'd always grown up seeing my mother wear paitanis and the most exotic weaves, my true journey and, the touch and feel of kalamkari and the smell of kalamkari and ikat and paitani and patola and garva kam and bastar with Jaidev Baghel and mithila work with Satnarayan and Moti Lal Karan, who, as you know, had gone to Japan and not had a very pleasant experience, if I'm not wrong. Gurappa Chetty's, I saw him work at his kalamkari and Chelapati Rao's leather puppets. And today I'm involved with you, Shubha, and Radharani Mataji and Radhika Kishori in the world of Lord Krishna's life. But back then I was not initiated to this extent, and yet I serendipitously bought the entire gamut of 6-foot leather puppets of Ram, Lakshman, Sita, and Ravan with his, 10 heads in a leather puppet. So it was absolutely a discovery that's even now continuing. And I wrote these books which you just mentioned, which is Symphonies in Stone, which was, the patron of which was Shri Arvind Singh Mewar, who's also my husband's uncle, the Maharaja of Udaipur. And then I wrote the book for Roshan Kalapesi called The Paramparic Book of Indian Crafts. So, writing the book in itself was a journey of learning, because I've always been a writer and an author, but I was not so initiated into the crafts. But under the tutelage of Roshan and under, you won't believe, I actually learned from the craftsmen. And I interpreted what they taught me into the books. And I lived and worked in Jaipur with Pawan Kumawat to see his work in stone sculpture, in, blue topaz, in various marbles, in jade. So it's been a journey of great learning. And like you said, one must not judge the contents by the packaging. Yes, glamour and fashion have always attracted me. My mother, brought me up by saying, when you feel your worst, look your best. So that's been one of the philosophies I've lived by in a life of some challenge and rapids. I've, preferred to be the warrior and not, wear my challenges, or rather than that, I've worn the glamour. Shubha, I'm so sorry, but I can't hear you at all. You'll have to up your volume. There seems to be a little glitch with the volume. Not really. It's slightly better. I'm going to try and hear you, Shubha.
Can you use your headphones?
It's better, much better.
Much better.
Yes.
So, Nisha, as we hear you really spellbound by your journey, story of your journey, and as I hear about the various colors in your life, the people who fill those colors, the efforts that you made, and your choice of becoming the warrior amongst all the challenges, I think it's very good material for story. And as a student of literature, I was absolutely attracted when I read about my favorite author, Jeffrey Archer. And, incidentally, when I was expecting my first child, I was reading The Prodigal Daughter. And so it's really very interesting to note that Jeffrey Archer has made you his heroine in one of his short stories. How did that meeting come about, and what's the story behind this story?
Jeffrey Archer's always been a good friend. I've lived and worked and traveled all over the world. He was quite, without, I don't want to sound immodest, but he was very delighted to meet me when we first met. And interestingly, when I introduced him to my husband, he absolutely forgot my existence because he was so riveted by the enigmatic man. And he wanted to know our story. And when I told him the story, I had no inkling that it's going to turn out into a book. Shubha, it's the first book in which he's used real names. I am Nisha JamVwal in the book, and thereby hangs a tale. And, all the characters, my father, my mother, or everyone in the book is, has their real name, and the places are the real places, except for perhaps the Taj Hotel, which has been called the Raj Hotel for branding reasons. The story came about, it's an absolutely true to life story. But this man, Jeffrey Archer, is one of the most brilliant storytellers that I have ever encountered, Shubha. And I'm going to say something a little politically incorrect. Shortly after that, I met Wilbur Smith, who's also been one of my favorite authors. I loved his River God series set in Egypt. I'm to an extent an Egyptologist as well. When I met Wilbur Smith, I was so disappointed because the books are so sparkling and the man was just not what I had expected or woven in my mind. And in contrast, when I met Lord Jeffrey Archer, he was so much more than what I imagined. He was so much greater and so much funnier and wittier and engaging. And on my birthday, he called me. He said, "What's your favorite restaurant?" And took me to the restaurant and handed me the first draft of the book. And I was enthralled. And shortly after that came the limited edition version. And I'd like to share a little surprise with you. I'd like to share something that hasn't been declared in the Indian press. My story was chosen as one of the favorite stories of readers worldwide. And that story has been illustrated. And but for the COVID debacle, the illustrations would be at a very famous gallery in London as we speak. And I would have been there to inaugurate the show along with Lord Jeffrey Archer. The book just reached me, interestingly, yesterday. And the book is right here. And I'm going to show you one or two of the sketches. I hadn't planned this, but I'm going to do it. And the sketches are so like a reality. And this story has been voted along with 10 other stories, which are the favorite of readers. And each one has illustrations which was supposed to be shown by Paul Cox in the gallery this month. But, man proposes and God disposes. So we haven't been able to be in London and see the sketches in reality. But the book did reach me yesterday, just in time for this talk. So Shubha, while you talk to me, I'm going to look for the sketches.
I think
While
it's
you
an
can't.
absolute pleasure for us. Yeah, but tell me,
So Shubha, the story of us sporting, and this is some of the sketches. This is done by one of England's most famous artists. And this is the book, and it's a limited edition signed copy by Lord Archer. So like you said, there can be no greater honor except the honor of meeting the person that you only can dream of and then marrying him. That is the greatest honor, I feel. Here it is, Shubha. So this is something I wanted to share with all our beautiful friends who've taken out the time on Sunday to be with us today. A very happy Friendship Day to all our viewers here today.
You're such a vivacious person, so energetic, with the gift of the gab. And it's so easy to make friends with you, you know, we feel comfortable when you're around. So yes, on the Friendship Day, it's good to have you here. And I was wondering, I was reading one of your and it spoke about your triumphs and challenges. Did you make them your stepping stones to your achievements in life?
Yes, absolutely, Shubha. They have, my troughs and challenges have been my greatest teachers and my greatest,
Nisha?
yes, Shubha.
Nisha?
Yes, Shubha, I can hear you. As I was saying, the troughs and the challenges and the rapids have definitely been the teachers and the allies in what has perhaps sculpted me and is continuing to sculpt me. The philosophy of always looking with it and always appearing happy and with a smile right there in place sometimes did take its toll, but having said which, I learned to shoulder responsibility, to shoulder trial, to shoulder tribulation, and come out a more strong person with the help of various tools, which I'm going to come to in the next second. But before that, I want to say that in this generation, I often find that, sometimes we tend to mollycoddle and protect people, and perhaps that robs them of the opportunity of triumphing and coming out stronger. Like they say, gold is only brought forth when it goes through fire. So that going through fire I have had, and I'm still continuing. I still have my share of challenges, and life has never been a cakewalk for me, contrary to the public perception that I create. Having said which, Shubha, there were certain very interesting happenstances that occurred in my life, like heartfulness meditation with Daji, with Sir Kamlesh Patel, who guided me in the world of meditation. And that was one of the turning points in my life. And soon after that came ISKCON and my journey with Lord Krishna, which is, of course, thanks to all of you ISKCON sisters, Prabhu Nityanand, and somebody who I really am a fan of, that's Gaurang Prabhu, Radhanath Swami, who came to my life very early on when I returned to India and who visited my house and graced, my life so beautifully. And that was a turning point in my life. And of course, with every passing day, there are beautiful people like, of course, Radha Rani Mataji and Radhika Keshori and Suman and Sangeeta. And there are so many beautiful sisters who I keep meeting, like yourself, Shubha. And I think every relationship and every friendship that you have with like-minded people actually grow you and metamorphose the fabric of your life. So the importance of surrounding yourself with beings whose quest is very similar to yours in terms of spirituality is a major game changer in the world. And the more we look at the easy ways out, the more we gravitate to the defeatist path. So my message would very strongly be that when we live in a reservoir of spirituality and prayer, which is India, no one has any business to take the easy way out and give up life. We always have an answer. We always have a beautiful path to Vaikuntha with the, I mean, I can't describe to you how everyone has opened their arms to me, guided me, shown me the way, considering I am not from a very traditional background, and I was not very, akin to the rituals and the understanding of the world of Krishna. It's been a very great revelation to me, and I would urge all the people in the world who feel, confused and at crossroads in their life, to envelop the world of ISKCON, because it exists all over the world. And I can only speak from my experience. Nothing has ever been expected from me in return. There is no demand, no requirement. There is only arms open to give. And this has been my experience with, Gaurang Prabhu, Nityanand, Radhanath Swami, and all the ISKCON sisters, which is something that I feel an urgent desire to share with the rest of the world, especially young, talented, brilliant people who feel the frustration and the angst of life and give up. And I wish I hope this platform, allows me to reach out to all those people to tell them that in India, you always have an answer.
Nisha, Radhanath Swami Maharaj often says that spirituality is nothing boring, something very dynamic. It's very vibrant, and you'll be so easily comfortable in this world because you yourself are so vibrant. And I was going to ask you about your journey to Govardhan Eco Village and how did you get there? But now I have all the answers with me. But tell me, what inspires you the most at Govardhan Eco Village? Other than, of course, Gaurang Prabhu. Because as far as I'm concerned, long back I saw him on Astha channel. And I used to wonder, how would I get to meet him? And so in a way, he led my way to the journey home. And the journey home led me to Radhanath Maharaj. But tell me about your
absolutely the opposite.
Pursuit.
It was Radhanath Swami who led me to everything else. Interestingly, when I met Radhanath Swami, he came to my house. I didn't have any idea about ISKCON, Krishna, nothing. I mean, yes, I've grown up in a world of prayer. My mother gave me the gift of prayer. But I had not understood, the formality of how you lead to the journey of self-discipline and a certain a timetable in terms of how to give yourself into certain promises which elevate your mind and your expectations from the world, and how to deal with disillusionment. Having said which, I met Gaurang Prabhu at one of his talks, and he spoke in Hindi and in English. And I was riveted. I'm an English honors graduate and an elocution and drama student. I couldn't get over the way he spoke. It was so articulate in Hindi and it was so articulate in English. And that to me is very attractive and he was effulgent and, literally like an aura with a halo behind his head. I actually saw it and I couldn't get over it. And when he deigned to speak to me, I was overwhelmed. I jumped over the moon with delight. And he invited me to Eco Village. I was transformed. I would request everyone hearing this who hasn't been to Eco Village to go there. It's a paradise. I mean, from the moment you enter that gate, the Yamuna River, which has been transformed, and created literally in just 2 hours away from Bombay. The temples, the dioramas, which is also known as the tableaus of Lord Krishna's life, so kaleidoscopic and so beautifully sculpted, strewn all over under trees and on hills, and the foliage, the flora, the fauna, of course the kilns and the, where they produce the soaps, the herbal soaps and the herbal oils. The massage parlors, which are even better than the Kerala massage parlors, exactly with the same hammam and the rosewood beds. I think each and every aspect so beautifully masterminded by Gaurang Prabhu and inspired by Radhanath Swami is a journey to paradise. But most of all, the fact that it's environmentally so, and I'm an environmentalist from head to toe. It's environmentally, won the UN award for environment consciousness. The fact that each and everything over there, the water, the waste management, everything is environmentally conscious to the last detail, is what is really admirable. It's a world-class village. So what we discussed at the Astha Forum is that if we were to create even just 20 such villages all over India, it would transform our nation into a model nation worldwide in terms of environment. Because as you know, Shubha, we are at a climate crisis currently. And if each and every person in the world was not to take a cue from the COVID situation and understand that we have to, each and every person, give up the use of tissue paper, give up the use of plastic, give up the use of, such rampant woods by felling trees, we are going to have a very urgent crisis. As we speak, the glaciers are melting, ice caps are melting. We are in a crisis. So we need more Gaurang Prabhus in the world to guide us.
Your bucket list is opening up now. So I can see you are looking at environmental activism. And I think Gaurang Prabhu would see you a very, very effective brand ambassador for Govardhan Eco Village and for all the causes, for all the issues that it espouses. It's so wonderful. Now tell me, I personally feel that it's your sensitivity, it's your innate sensitivity to your nature, to the nature around, that must have drawn you to the world of art and craft. And I was wanting to know, how did you manage to reach Orissa? A girl from Mumbai going to Orissa, looking at that beautiful state with its vibrant colors. You know, I have had the most wonderful time staying very close to Orissa for 5.5 years. And I've seen the Sambalpuri weaves, the ikkas, the bonkais, the pattachitras. And I'm very eager to know about your journey to that state.
So Shubha, I can absolutely identify with your love for that area and for Pattachitra and even Pipli work, the patchwork, which is so dramatically beautiful. I was riveted by it since childhood, and my mother's been a collector of Pipli work, counterpanes, bed covers, that is. So when I was invited by Tata Steel to give a workshop on Gond art to the tribals and the Adivasis, I didn't realize what I was in for. I went there with, no real expectations except my desire to buy some Pattachitra and to buy 1 or 2 sculptures from Sudarshan Shetty, who I've also written about. He, of course, is a world-famous sculptor and a master craftsman. When I went there, Shubha, I was absolutely in for a life-transforming experience. When I finished my workshop with the Adivasis, they caught hold of my hand and started crying. A lot of them were displaced villagers and Adivasis who had been displaced from their villages. And they started crying and saying, "When will you come back?" And I was so moved by that, and I wanted to do something for them. And through this journey, I met a very inspiring man called Bismoy Mahapatra, who leads Harsha Trust. He invited me to join Harsha Trust. And before that, I'd had a very disillusioning experience with an NGO from Delhi, which had not put a single penny that I had raised to helping street children, which is what the premise was for me to help them. And I became so cautious about, helping NGOs, because We need to be very, very cautious in our desire to be do-gooders. We should not help the wrong people. We must do a due diligence about the NGOs that we help. And, once bitten, twice shy, I did do a due diligence, and I found it to be a watertight, clean, squeaky clean NGO. I joined Harsha Trust, and I go there once in 3 months to work with them in irrigation, to ideate, to fundraise, to work on innovations on poultry, on irrigation, on agriculture. And as we speak, Mr. Kalyan Banerjee and Mr. Panda, who are two IIT professors, and myself are trying to build reading rooms for those young children who don't go to school, but who would like to read and write. So we are collecting books from all over India and placing them in these reading rooms. So it's been a very, very inspiring journey, Shubha. And it's something that, and of course, as you know, Orissa, I think, is one of the richest states in terms of craft. So I keep going back, and every time I come back, I bring back something with me. I indulge myself in the crafts of Orissa. That's my treat to myself. So yes, Orissa is a state which is very dear to me.
And I think you would remember that famous show, India's Got Talent. And we came across such beautiful sand artists from Orissa.
In
Right?
fact, Shubha, I must interject and digress and ask you about the sari you're wearing. I think I've always noticed when you're on stage, helming LBD, I've always noticed you're, always wearing a beautiful weave. So tell us a little bit about what you're wearing today for a change.
So, my husband's profession in railways as a railway officer took me all over the country. And I got this opportunity to meet some very good weavers. And I got introduced to these weaves. And I wonder if my husband even has an inkling about it. Because, I'm really very keen to know about the fabric, about the kind of weave, the warp and the weft, the technique used in each making of each sari. The one that I'm wearing right now is from where I belong. It's from Madhya Pradesh. It's from Maheshwar. And those historic looms that were set by Devi Ahilya Bai Holkar back in the...
I've been fortunate to know Sally.
Yeah.
Yes. And Maheshwari is very, very dramatic and beautiful. And I love the one that you're wearing today, Shubha.
And it's a piece of the Bagh block from district of Dhar in Madhya Pradesh, and the traditional Maheshwari. So yes, I'm fond of it, and that's why when you're talking about the weaves and the crafts, I'm all ears. I'm lapping it up. And I was really wanting to know about the sand artists from Orissa. Have you come in contact with those great artists?
The sand artists?
Yes.
I have heard of them, Shubha, but I haven't really worked with the sand artists. Mm-hmm. I have worked with Sudarshan Shetty and with some of the filigree artists and the PT work artists and the Gadwa Kam artists who are also from Bengal. I've worked in and around that area. One of my favorites is Kantha work. Alima Khatun, of course, is one of the great Kantha artists, and I have some of her works. So I can't say that I've had the privilege, but next time I go, taking a cue from what you've told me today, I will go and explore this craft, and I hope I can come back and discuss it with you. I hope those times can return when we can meet, and chat, things that we took so much for granted. We took so much for granted, the joys of hugging and sitting together shoulder to shoulder and having a cup of tea. These are joys which are suspended currently, and contrary to what a lot of, because I've had a very, very active life, I don't miss any of that. But what I do miss is the human interaction of sitting in front of each other and having the warmth of personal interaction.
we, Radhanath Swami Maharaj is protective of Shubha, and of his blessings is there with us. And I'm very sure that this too shall pass and that we'll meet soon. And we're staying I think we're staying next door to each other. So it'll be a great opportunity to meet you, and I've been looking forward to it.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
and
Thank you so.
you spoke about these artists who were wanting help, and you talk about Harsha Trust. Now, in this situation of COVID, don't you think our artisans, our weavers, our craftsmen are going to require more support, more help from us? Are you planning to do something for them?
Shubha, at this current moment, the one thing that I would call human innovation, and which is really helping, is online. So my message to most of the craftsmen is to try and sell their wares online. And my request to all e-com businesses is to, now that we've had the foresight and the intelligence to give up pre-digested pap from China, is to reach out to not only, appreciate and give a platform, but give impetus and celebrate all our Indian traditional indigenous crafts. I was recently on the jury of Times She Unlimited Entrepreneur Awards, and I had the privilege to interact with 6,000 participants as a member of the jury. And my one message to them was that in your craft, in your work, in your interiors, in your couture, please encourage and give work to the traditional craftsmen of India. Because if we don't do that, Shubha, the paramparic tradition, which is how the crafts work in India, is going to die. The next generation is more keen to become computer operators and businessmen rather than the tedious and very time consuming crafts which are native to India. So yes, what you're saying is true. It's a very challenging time for every creative person currently. But luckily, we have forums like Tata Click, who are encouraging indigenous crafts and are giving a platform. And in whatever way I can, I am helping them innovate. So, for instance, there are these Bandhani and also Mithila, Madhubani craftsmen who are creating hand-painted masks. So I wish I'd got one to show you here. So these are, I think, fabulous. We all have to innovate and move with the times. So this is a very challenging time in human, the human map. But we are going to have to navigate it. And I think each and every one of us can try and show a little sensitivity. And most importantly, not bargain with the craftsmen of India.
You spoke about the younger generation, the computer professionals. I have a take on it. These young professionals are in their office wearing formal wear, they are wearing Western wear, and I find that they have very little time to develop a keen eye for our weaves, traditional weaves. I just wonder how we can turn the tide in the sense, bring a change in their tastes so that they can drape the saris, they can wear the traditional dupattas, they can wear the traditional kurtas, and be so much more comfortable and take it to their office. So I think you'll be a great brand ambassador for the younger generation.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more, Shubha. I think if all of us could lead by example and could, use our influences on social media in the world of couture, and there are certain designers who are encouraging the crafts like Gudda, who's Rohit Bal. There are crafts, there is Anamika Khanna, there are designers who are doing, rather than gravitating. Shubha, I had a very strange experience in Orissa. There is a very close friend who I love very much, who built a grand mansion, like a palace. And when I entered his house, I just was agog and I looked all over. And I said, but where is, the sculpture, and where is Patachitra, and where is, where are the crafts of your state? And he said, of course not. I have stuff from Milan, and I have stuff from the UK. And I was so heartbroken, Shubha. In the same vein of what you spoke of, I sometimes feel, with all due respect and humility, that we need to give up the colonial, the slave mentality that we have genetically inherited. And we need to now be proud of our own language, which is Hindi and Sanskrit. We need to be proud of our own heritage. We need to be proud. And I'm very grateful to Prime Minister Modi, who has taken the lead in showing us that we need to have an Atmanirbhar Bharat. We need to have a Swachh Bharat. We need to be proud of our own Sanskriti, of our own heritage, of our own nation. For how long are we going to be colonial leftovers, thinking that only things from Milan are the greatest, finds and spoils of our hard work? I think, if people like us could brandish the crafts of India, it would end the colonial leftover slavishness with which we enjoy only the Western. After all, it took the West to make yoga trendy. Why is that? Why is that we always want Western imports to encourage? And why can we not eulogize and celebrate our own Sanskriti?
Definitely, Nisha. And this has been on my mind for quite some time. That why the slavish mentality has been so overpowering that anything that is a part of our rich heritage has to travel to the West first and then come back to us. I'm sure it's going to change with vocal for local, with Make in India, and as you said about Modi ji, his Atmanirbhar slogan. I'm sure it's going to turn the tide. And another thing that I read about you was about your activism, about your thoughts on equal rights. Equal rights for, they could be for the downtrodden, for equal rights for the Dalits, equal rights for the gay community. Which community are you addressing in your
I'm
role?
Specially abled, Shubha ji. And I feel if India wants to forge ahead globally, especially in terms of tourism, we need to absolutely make all our public places wheelchair friendly. We need to have braille in voting booths, and for all applications, they have to have, for the hearing impaired, they need to be equipped for the hearing impaired. We need to have cinemas, banks, all public structures need to be infrastructurally planned with ramps and physically disabled restrooms. I also work for women empowerment because I strongly believe that women entrepreneurs will be the lifeblood and templars of the economy of India. Of course, I have a deep empathy and I wish to help most people who lack a voice. But the two areas where I'm very focused on is women empowerment and the specially abled, where I have taken the Maharashtra government to court, and that has been a really a very charming exercise because the courtroom turns into a very collaborative exercise of BMC, us, just about everyone on the same page. It's nearly as if it's like a little meeting room. There is no one against what we believe in. BMC has been very, very the Honorable Commissioner is very pro the message and has been very eager to make all the public buildings in Maharashtra specially abled. And as you know, Honorable Prime Minister was very keen and has accessibility as one of his mandates even before he was elected into power. So he's been very, very much a patron of this movement of mine.
Oh, how wonderful. We'll be looking forward to the judgment when it comes. And we'll be looking forward to hearing your success story as far as this particular issue is concerned. Uh, Nisha, there are some questions coming up. Uh, Let us take them up right away because they are closely associated with what you're doing and the conversation. There's Neha. She wants to know, how shall we cultivate creativity among the youth? See, youth has to be at the forefront of all the issues that you expose, that are close to your heart. So, how do we make them more creative? How do we make them more sensitive? How can that happen?
I do find that the youth, the next gen, and the uh, millennials are very exciting, very enterprising, and they have a host of tools that were not available to us in terms of Google, in terms of being able to have knowledge at the click of a finger. You know, Shubha, we would have to consult tomes of encyclopedias, which doesn't happen right now. And I'm very excited to deal with the beautiful, young denizens these days. I'm excited to see the work that they do. But yes, it would be wonderful if they were to be more attracted to indigenous crafts, if they were to be, offer greater attention span than the internet allows us. So social media and, having, jumping from website to website does create a very low attention span. So the one thing that I would say to all parents is to limit time on social media for their progeny and to allow, the old world habits of creating art, going to museums, looking at craft, and being away from the internet for chunks of periods of time would be very beneficial. Because if you were to ask me the one malaise that I see currently, it is the lack of attention span and the great obsession with social media. So if you have, thousands of likes on Instagram, it gratifies you and gives you a raison d'etre. I'm a great, fan and encourager of a lot of youthful people who are writing books, who are making paintings. And I feel encouraging that and exemplifying it and celebrating it would create more heroes in our, country and in the world. And of course, like I said, absolutely discouraging hours and hours and hours on smartphones and in the internet. So if you were to ask me the one game changer, it would be to not expose a child to the phone very early.
Now, whatever you said, I'm going to respond at two levels. One is, while I was teaching, I realized that children can't sit with their eyes closed even for a minute. A minute is too long a period for them to sit still and to be with themselves. And I realized that it's because of their overexposure to social media and the images that they keep seeing on the computer. I also realized that it hampers their creativity. Suppose you gave them a topic like, write a paragraph on your first encounter in the wild. They'll immediately type the topic and they'll get an n number of options through the net, and their paragraph would be ready in a few seconds, right? So I think you're working also in the field of education.
Yes.
Your message here carries immense value for us teachers. And I think I'm going to speak about it more frequently, enthused by your support.
Thank you.
And you also talked about the younger generation veering towards traditional arts and crafts. There's a wonderful devotee within our fold, Rucha, and she's making these Madhubani paintings, I think. And if I'm not mistaken, a Pattachitra or Madhubani. And very sweetly, she put them up as her status and wrote there, anybody willing to buy my paintings, the proceeds would go to Anamrita. And I was really inspired. I thought I would share it with you. And
And
someone,
also, people like Prabhu Nityanand, who are doing the classes on the Bhagavad Gita or classes on explaining the Mahabharata to the youth. He's got these classes for groups of people from in their teens. Now that would give a beautiful insight to to an entire generation on something that we may leave behind if we don't have more such classes, and also the ability to sit down and focus nearly like meditation on a class that probably lasts for 2 hours, which also means creating greater attention span rather than rushing to your phone and having a look at how many messages you've missed on WhatsApp. So I think these little steps, like this young lady who's giving the proceeds to Anamrita, and what Nityanand Prabhu's doing, and what Gaurang Prabhu's doing in Eco Village, and the classes that the ISKCON Avatar Leela has, these are great game changers in our country, I feel.
you have in fact answered the next question. Neeta was asking you, what measures can be taken to change our way of thinking, especially for our children? And I think your suggestion of those attending those classes would definitely
And
help.
also, I want to tell Geeta something by interconnecting what you said, that if somebody was asked to write a paragraph on the wild, how could they? Where are the wilds? We've denuded so many forests. So is it the problem of a youngster, or is it the problem of us who are leaving behind the legacy of a world where the sea is polluted and the forests are denuded? So, I feel we need to work very hard in not only creating those wilds, but also exposing our children, rather than going to Dubai and shop, to go to those wilds, or to go to Painch or to Ranthambore, and show them our forests and our animals, and teach them the love for the animal kingdom and for flora and fauna, and make our entire generation more environmentally conscious, isn't it, Shubha?
And the legacy that you're talking about, it's so disturbing because when people talk about climate changes, when people talk about the pollution in the environment, I have a feeling that we are responsible for this kind of imbalance that has been created all around the world. There's a lot of hope because there are people like you around who are carrying forward the task of reversing whatever harm has already been done. And I'm sure the younger generation will be enthused and inspired. And what about philanthropy, Nisha? How do you look at it? Which are the areas you're serving through this idea? I would like to know.
Can you just repeat the last sentence, Shubha? What am I doing in terms of philanthropy?
You are a philanthropist, right? And I would like to know which are the areas that you are providing your services to as far as this aspect is concerned.
I have been involved in philanthropy nearly since I was 10 years old, Shubha. I started working in the shanty towns, helping educate younger children when I was very, very young. Apart from which, I have always tried to help with the education of the underprivileged. That's been a very close thing to my heart, whether it's sponsoring children or giving away laptops, you know, collecting all their laptops and giving them. I feel education will be a great, if everyone in this country was to be educated, we wouldn't have to work on things like hygiene. Awareness and educating our uneducated, you know, population would make our population into an asset in this country instead of a liability. I honestly feel things like Manrega actually rob people of initiative. Instead, to give interest-free loans and to give the ability to study English, to learn, you know, articulate Hindi, to learn science, to learn math, to learn new techniques of irrigation and agriculture, to create Krishi Kendras. These are huge game changers. And forgive me for coming back to Gaurang Prabhu, but his classes to, you know, teach people at WADA for IIM and IIT exams, entrance exams. These are game changers in our country. And I try to you know, give a large chunk of my earnings towards these causes. I try to collect old laptops because technology is so fast and changing, and people change technology so fast. So I try to take their old laptops and books and give them away in villages. Apart from which, I worked very strongly for many, many years in creating, as I earlier mentioned, philanthropically, handicap friendly places, especially where builders and where the government have not been as cooperative as the BMC. I've gone out and created ramps myself. So wherever I could make a change, for instance, during this period or in COVID, I've given away masks and PPE kits along with the Life Foundation, along with Poonam Lalwani, to Vrindavan, the ISKCON, you know, centers in Vrindavan. We've sent PPE kits and masks there, as well as to all the people in Bombay who couldn't have access to masks and PPE kits. So actually in our country, there's no dearth of how much philanthropy you can do. And whatever we do is less. So I learned from people like Gaurang Prabhu, and I follow them as their humble servant, to try and you know, just add to what beautiful things they are doing. So I will be led by people like you and Gaurang Prabhu and Radharani Mataji in my journey, but there will be no dearth of effort.
That's very heartening. That's very heartening, Nisha. And how can we thank you enough for gracing this platform? It's been a very enriching evening. And during our course of conversation, you have given us a wealth of inspiration. You've given us a wealth of information. And I think almost every other question that would be arising in young minds, in our audience's minds, would have been answered by now. For a person like you, sky's the limit, and there are miles and miles to go. And I'm sure with your inspired efforts, with your energy, your boundless enthusiasm, you'll reach your goals. And may Lord Krishna bless you always with such noble intent, with boundless energy, and with so much charm. Thank you so much, Nisha, for being here. We are honored.
Thank you so much, Shubha. It's a privilege to have this chat with you. For many years, I've seen you and heard you like a nightingale, helming the liberation of sound musical gatherings, and I've always loved the way your turn of phrase. And I'd like to thank you and Radharani Mataji, such an inspiring mentor and guide, and our beautiful Apsara, Radhika Kishori, and all the lovely human beings, you know, who've thought of Pavitra Forum to inspire, encourage, and motivate lots of people all over the world to come forward and embrace the spirituality of Pavitra Forum, and to always, gravitate to the wealth of cultural and spiritual knowledge that it expends to all of us internationally. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nisha. And to the audience, uh, I just have to say, please keep coming back. You are our patrons. Please keep watching all our guests, hearing them, learning from them, getting inspired by them. Nisha was here today, and I'm sure we'll be back with her once again soon enough, discussing new issues. And there'll be many more speakers on Pavitra gracing this platform, and we'll be connecting with you again and again. Be with us always. Thank you so much once again.
Friendship Day to all the lovely friends who took out the time to be with us today. Thank you so much.